Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This is the first episode of 2018, kicking off this season with an episode with Tony Kim, who is from the Crazy for Comic-Con blog, as well as the founder of Hero Within, a premier geek fashion company. So we talk about his journey and just the work that he's doing, really cool stuff with his company. So definitely check it out. He recommends a bunch of great podcasts for budding entrepreneurs. But I just really appreciate Tony's time. He's just been someone that I look up to a lot in the kind of geeky realm here. So it was really nice to chat with him, and I can't think of anyone better to kick off this season. So you will notice in the first part of this episode, I do go into a little bit of kind of some pivots that I'm making, just some slight ones to make sure I'm bringing in a little bit more of the higher ed side of things. You'll notice that in this episode and the next several ones here with kind of season 2 in 2018. So really just want to make sure I'm bringing in both the higher ed world and the geek world together to create some beautiful harmony there with each of my guests. So after this brief message from our sponsor, this is episode number 9 with Tony Kim. It's an honor to have our good friends at SwiftKick be a sponsor of the podcast because I've seen their work firsthand, and it's truly unlike any student leadership training I've experienced. They've been voted Best Student Leadership Program unprecedented 5 times, so you know they must be doing something right. As a bonus for our listeners, SwiftKick is giving a $500 discount off their normal speaking fee if you mention Higher Ed Geek when you contact them. I highly recommend their trainings for your campus, as your students will be talking about it for months afterwards. It's really great stuff. Check them out, swiftkickhq.com, to learn more, and let them know I sent you. Now, back to the show.
Nice.
And I guess how does it sort of sort out for your sort of work life? Like, is the end of the year busy just with with the Hero Within stuff? I don't like if you're just like getting into like a lot of just like shipping everything out and it's like really busy.
Yeah.
Because I guess like other stuff might be less busy, but then that stuff is more busy.
It's all busy, but definitely the weeks leading into Christmas have been very busy, but it'll be quiet for a few days through Christmas, and then we're heavily into planning for next year, so it's a lot of production planning. So only a day or two to rest.
Yeah, I guess if you think about it, with the, sort of all that you do, there's like it's just busy with different stuff, I guess, or there may sort of feel like ebbs and flows. But like you're saying, it's like we have to think about stuff for the 2018 conventions and just like planning and production versus like actively being at places. Like it might just be a lot of just sitting down and like doing more of the administrative behind the scenes things now versus anything else. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to talk to you and just kind of explore your professional journey, just because this is my little sort of pocket of the sort of geek realm here. I was sort of like being like, who are like the dream guests, the people who I feel like would be really cool to explore their journey, just as I sort of figure out the focus, like I kind of got to in my original email. So I just really want to try to explore just your path, those kind of like decision points as you sort of built up these things. And then, I'm trying to see how people's journeys have their passions align with their strengths. And then I didn't do it as much this sort of past pilot season when I talked to like a couple of people, but just sort of if your college experience played any sort of, integral role. So this kind of brings in more of the higher ed stuff. I was kind of airing a lot more on the geek stuff. I'm trying to keep on brand and do both sides of the equation here. But I really appreciate your time here to jump on for the podcast here quickly. But we'll go ahead and dive in. If you want to just introduce yourself to everybody and kind of give a kind of Cliff Notes version of your professional journey and how you got to be where you are now. And we'll kind of dig in deeper with a couple of different things as we move along here.
All right. Well, my name is Tony Kim, and I've been a professional blogger, as well as now my latest sort of thing is in the world of geek fashion. And in a nutshell, I basically started out blogging about the Comic-Con community, con culture, and that led into a bunch of industry opportunities. And kind of through those opportunities where I was hosting and interviewing and partaking in a lot of different events, I realized that there was a real gap in the market for professional and sort of nicer, sophisticated wear for that's still geeky, but for guys.
Mhm.
And because for the most part out there at this point, it was a lot of t-shirts and hoodies. So I felt like that I had a vision for something that could be different in the fashion space that was both equally geeky as well as sophisticated and fashionable. So we launched a company called Here Within back in early 2016, so a little over a year ago. And we've been kind of rocking ever since then, going to different conventions and shows and selling online. And it's been an incredible experience, a roller coaster ride of an experience, but it's been awesome.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'm curious with, like you said, it was just sort of this, maybe if it was like an epiphany or just this sort of pattern, like you're saying, that you saw that there was kind of a gap in kind of the geek fashion world and everything. What was sort of that experience like? Because I think, from my understanding, with like the Crazy for Comic Con, that's sort of like you said, you just kind of blogged and it's sort of like kind of built up around you, and then from that sort of foundation that you built for yourself, being at the conventions for so many years and seeing all this stuff, you then started Here Within, which feels like it's a lot more of kind of a formal business for you. And I'm curious, I guess,
Right.
like, did you think about that for a really long time and do a lot of research? Because I think so much of this sort of like the zeitgeist of like, starting a business, like doing what you love and all that. It's just like, just do it. Just like go and do it. Like, I guess, I don't know how impulsive did it feel for you? Like how much planning
Yeah.
did you do? And I guess, how has that felt, I guess, of just like, cause you went as like a fan, you went as somebody like covering as press and like doing panels and stuff, but now like also going as an exhibitor, like, that's obviously
Yeah.
a different role. I guess just that sort of journey from inception to now, like, being an exhibitor. What's kind of the journey been with Here Within?
Yeah, I love when Steve Jobs in his commencement speech for Stanford kind of shared it near the end how it's really hard to connect the dots as you're looking forward, but it's much easier when you look back. You can just see the how your life sort of major events sort of connected together. And for myself, yeah, I mean, I just sort of I love experimenting and trying new things and reinventing myself. And like you said, I was really involved in different at Comic Cons and really involved with writing and blogging and all that. And so part of my experience was particularly for the San Diego Comic Con each year, we want to make it because you want to make a memorable event and a fun event. I kind of started thinking of what are something kind of weird and different and kind of goofy that I can do each year. And so I started out, I took those, the Warner Brother swag bags, the big giant bags that you would get at Comic Con.
Right.
And I basically converted those into blazers and jackets to wear. And so, it's really silly looking. It's like really gaudy, because it's got these giant graphics but I, would convert it into sort of everyday wear, like a blazer, and just to kind of be fun and kind of represent my passion and fandom for Comic Cons. But through that process, I kind of backed my way into realizing that people really love their particular fandom, and in this case, Warner Brothers and DC, and they love fashion and they love to see the sort of the mashup of the two. So I did that for a couple of years, and the third year I was going to do it. I was like, man, like if I could do another fun coat that kind of was fun to wear, but I thought, well, maybe instead of just doing a one-off costume, maybe I could take these things that I've learned from the past couple of years and actually turn it into a actual ready to wear piece that I could wear every day, not just at Comic Cons.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's certainly nothing that I would have planned. I think again, looking back at the dots, I think it just was a matter of experimenting, trying new things. I'm not a costume person, so I don't even like to dress up like that, but it's working outside your comfort zone, taking a risk, trying some things, getting people's reaction, and then iterating it to the next level. So, I wouldn't have planned it that way, but it really was this sort of goofy costuming experience that kind of led me to, maybe I could actually convert this to an actual blazer. Mm-hmm. And so the third year, myself and then my design partner, we kind of fast tracked a actual blazer that was our first sort of prototype, and I wore it that year. And I basically online, I was very transparent with, hey, I'm just trying this. If you see it, or if you can give me feedback on it, or if you know anyone who might be interested in it, I'd love to see it come to reality. And so that at that particular Comic-Con, which at that time was 2015, I just kind of put it out there on my blog that, hey, this is just a kind of a wild sort of experiment, and please be a part of it. Let me know what you think. And didn't think it would. I don't know where it could have went really, but it was great to just be there, San Diego, and to get some great feedback on it. And then from 2015 to 2016, it turned to a real company. So, it's just one of those things. It was about a 3-year process that wasn't really super intentional. It just was forward progress, momentum, getting feedback, willing to look a little foolish and stupid, and had a million people that were like, yeah, it's awesome, but then another million people who were like, it won't make it. And so the sort of willingness to sort of embrace the challenge, and regardless of wherever it goes, was sort of the process to get there. But it wasn't super intentional. It wasn't until the early part of 2016 that I got laser focused on it. But yeah, so it's like many things and many inventions and all that. You just sort of back your way into it out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just kind of, like you're saying, almost just like you had done a lot already, and it almost kind of like, because I think I kind of get that way. I guess that's sort of what I sense, I guess, is that like blogging or, doing what you've done for a while, almost just like I get like restless after I'm kind of like, okay, I think I got this, like what's next? And like you just kind of feeling comfortable being vulnerable and just being like, hey, I'm like testing this out and getting that like customer validation. And if you get enough affirmative things, it's like, you know what, I feel like I'm going to try it, and not like right out of the gate without any sort of almost like market research, so to speak. You're just like, I'm going to invest like a bunch of money in this and like just hope it works. It's like you kind of you dabbled and you just were comfortable, like, put yourself out there that way. And I think, from what you're saying too, just like, I guess, you knew maybe people that could help you, since it's like, well, I'm not a tailor, like I can't make these things. I may know people that could help me, or I know kind of like the scene and how to sort of help market it and stuff. So like all of that coalescing together, helping you to go on this journey. But
I talked to a lot of people who want to similarly start their own business or their own thing, and the biggest thing is, it's never, what's so funny is that the number one commodity that people really focus on is the idea, and it's sort of like, if I had this great idea, and they think that's really the idea, and while that is certainly a part of it, the willingness to look foolish, the willingness to put the time and the great energy into it, and getting something to market and really getting in front of people, like there's so much more to it than just the idea, and so my little 2 cents to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur or start their own business is that, sure, you got to come up with something that is going to get people's attention, but that's the tip of the iceberg. That's 10% of it. The rest of it is really what you do for the rest of your 23 hours of the day, year after year.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. And I guess as a brief aside here is kind of your origin story and stuff. Like, do you feel like your college experience, specifically, just to kind of bring the higher ed side of things in here, do you feel like that gave you anything just in terms of like your own identity, like sort of like relationships or anything that have like helped you throughout your journey, or skills, anything I guess that you can think of just like sort of how did that origin story when you were at college, how did that make you into who you are today, maybe helped you with these current endeavors?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if eating pizza and playing video games all night helped me a whole lot. No, I think the biggest thing, I went to a design and art school, and it was very competitive. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that was it really built a certain level of being able to take criticism, basically. And I still remember very vividly that feeling of, you would come in each class puts your work on the wall and the whole class critiques it, and just that simple sort of, and some people, they take their work so seriously that it's an extension of themselves. So when they experience criticism, it's demoralizing and debilitating, and it's crushing, soul crushing. And while it certainly is painful, I think I've just sort of like realized it's just part of the creative process, and the sooner you get it out in front of as many people as possible to experience as much terrible negative feedback, the better it is for you overall. There's no sense trying to protect your ideas and no sense trying to wait till whatever you're working on is perfect. Like there's so many people who are just like, they've written a screenplay or they've written a book or they're working on a piece of artwork, whatever, and they just want to get it perfect before it gets out in front of people. And there's no such thing. There really is no such thing. Mm-hmm. The only way something gets to be quote unquote perfect is in direct response to people's feedback. So I think that if anything, what the biggest value that I had from school is it's a semi-safe place to get your ego destroyed, because when you're out in the world, in the workforce or whatever, if you turn out substandard or if you just turn out products that's just terrible, you lose your job or whatever, or you don't get the contract or whatever. But at school, you can really go out there, go on the limb, and sure, you'll get beaten around a little bit, but you just pick yourself up and you do it over the next day, and so I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned from my college experience was it's just a great place to to get the real honest and real, depending on where you go to school, I guess. But in my particular situation, it was just a really great place to get honest and painful and brutal feedback and not be afraid to be embarrassed, and really understand the value of getting peer collaboration, peer feedback, and just to try things that you would never feel comfortable trying in the quote unquote real world. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense and connects to your point that you made before of just like, that was what was helpful for you with like the latest endeavor you went on with Hero Within, and just, yeah, that was at least kind of planted and fostered and nurtured when you were in college of just feeling comfortable with, putting yourself out there with your creative endeavors. So that's really cool. And yeah, I guess with, all the things that you do now, and, it's certainly changed over time, especially with like the Crazy for Comic-Con, like kind of evolving and all that, and now really getting into a different space with the fashion work that you do. So I guess what are the pieces about that and the different ways that you interact with, writing or podcasting or, kind of strategy and vision or like the fashion stuff? Like what are the things that keep you motivated, keep you excited? Like what do you enjoy most about your current work that you do that kind of, through these busy times and things kind of keeps you energized?
Yeah. Well, definitely, I started blogging back in, it was probably 2008 or 9, around there, 2009 or so. And it's kind of funny because I have never been a really big like reader. Like I'm just not a great, like I love reading online, but I don't go burn through a lot of books. I just, maybe I have ADD. I don't know what it is, but I love reading and I read a lot and I absorb a lot of content, but I've never been one that's like a heavy, like I just burn through like all kinds of books or novels or whatever. In the same way, I've never been a really great writer either. Like I have a whole stack of journals, next to my bedside that say like day 1, and I write like the first sentence and then like it's followed by a whole journal is blank, and then, so I've never really been a great writer. But when I started blogging, things changed significantly. And that ability to take a risk and put your thoughts out there for the universe to respond to, that changed things for me. Like the pressure of that first year, I committed myself to write every day for a year. I just said I was going to write every day for a year. Again, mind you, I had not written very much and wasn't very successful at writing in the past, but I went through the exercise of writing every day and I did that, and it just changed me. It changed me fundamentally at my core, who I was, and this whole idea of being able to express myself, and some people would love it, some people would hate it. But for some reason, that the creative process of putting a work out there that people respond to in real time really changed how I developed content, today. And so I think that the biggest thing that I learned in this whole journey, from whether it's just writing, blogging, or creating something physical, or now in the clothes and fashion industry, is that I've just always wanted to. It's not about trying to be a big name or be famous or whatever, but it's just, to me, it just came down to I want to bring and create value for the community that I love, and whether it's Comic-Con or whether it's just nerd culture, geek culture, or geek/fashion culture. I want to be able to create something that people say, if that person or that company disappeared, that we would miss them, and I wanted to create something that's, and particularly when it came to Hero Within, I wanted to create something that people were proud to wear, that they felt good about themselves, that, name of our company being Hero Within is the idea that there's a hero that's within all of us. For some people it's obvious, for some people it's not, but we all have a hero in all of us that needs to be expressed in some way, and I want our clothing to reflect that, and I want people to feel like they're valued and that they're heroic when they wear, a Hero Within product. And so for me, it's just been about how do I create something that really brings value to the customer. It's not about making a bunch of money, trying to be famous or be recognized or whatever it is. It just is like, wow, I just want to make something that makes people feel good about themselves and gives them some confidence, help them feel like they're empowered. Because, all of us, certainly if you're of a certain age, we kind of remember being a nerd and being a little bit marginalized or being disconnected or being made fun of. And ultimately, we felt like we didn't have the power. We didn't feel like we really could influence or really, we just felt at disadvantage in some way as a nerd. And nowadays, it's a little bit different, because nerds are the influencers and the taste makers and those sort of things. And, I think I would like our clothes to reflect that. So yeah, I think just for me, it's just I really want to create something of value for the community that I love dearly.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's at the core of everything that you do, and that's what keeps you excited. Is that you get to positively contribute and create content or create actual physical things, with a piece of clothing that someone can wear and all of that. And yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I hear that a lot, and it was sort of an experience I went through too, writing. You're sort of framing it of you almost have to go through writing boot camp, just be really hard on yourself. I gotta write all the time, and even if it's not great, just get into the habit, and then you can sort of ease off. But then it's I think I had a peak of writing a lot, and it's sort of eased out to where it's I write less now, but I feel like I write better because I've written so much because it's gotten really good through practice. And
certainly podcasting has changed that, and vlogging, and I just tell people all the time, find your medium, find your format. It doesn't have to be what someone that you admire, like someone who's a prolific writer. It doesn't have to be like that. It could be, there's a lot of different ways and forms that it could take. But I think it is important to get things out there, doing something creative on a daily basis, whatever that might look like. But yeah, I know people who turned out to be, they just struggle with writing, but podcasting they're great at, or a lot of things. So I think that regardless, that sort of daily exercise of putting content out there, I think it's really important. It's really healthy, and it's really the only way to get not just good at something, but to find your particular voice in the space. And what I'm particularly kind of bothered by is in response to this recent Star Wars film, and the Force Awakens, or The Last Jedi certainly had its problems, but I enjoyed it. It had loads of problems, and it definitely there's some tonal and logical shifts that are occurring in the Star Wars universe. But to use your blog and social media just to sort of spew vitriol and just criticism and negative, and that's the extent of your digital footprint, is just, I'm just going to sort of criticize everything. you have to voice and speak up, and you need to defend and all that. There's a time and place for that. But I think that the digital revolution has given us a chance to create content, to make beautiful things, to inspire people, to change lives. And so I hope that our community of nerds, we do have that side to be very negative and critical. But I hope that that people will embrace the positive and really try to make stuff instead of tear things down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of ascribe to that idea of just celebrate what you love versus like bashing what you hate sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or just trying to, like kind of value add and create beauty in the world versus just always kind of being like negative. And I guess if you do, because it's like not everyone has to like everything, but be sort of like thoughtful in your criticism, and also don't be like, oh, this person who likes this thing that I don't like, it's like, well, they're dumb. You're just dumb. Yeah. It's like, well, that's just so dismissive. It's like, you don't have to like everything. And like not everybody else has to like the things that you like or like them in the same way. Like that's a whole other conversation. Like, the whole sort of like, we have to like consume things in like the right way to be like a real, geek or nerd or whatever like that. Which I feel like, thankfully, like the very passionate communities and the fandoms that follow things, or certainly, I think we're slowly moving past that. But yeah, there's always just that, I think that nasty core that we have to like kind of just start to erode away of just, all those sorts of things. But and I think the way that people can do that, it's just kind of either like, you don't always have to say anything. And if you do have to say something, like to say, the parts that you liked, or be thoughtful in your criticisms, or just be positive. We could all use a little bit more positivity. So, but I guess speaking of that, and because it's definitely, I'm still processing Last Jedi. I guess just anything else, that you're consuming lately that you really want to highlight that you've enjoyed, or anything just kind of classically, if it's sort of some favorites current or all time, anything, just like books, games, podcast shows, anything that you just want to kind of give a tip of the hat to.
Something that's a little bit on the lighter side of things. So I've been a huge fan of Star Trek forever, and ever since I was a little boy, like Star Trek, I've just loved it, and I've watched all the television series and of course the movies and whatnot. But I've been so pleasantly surprised with the TV show Orville. And, it's such a weird, quirky show that shouldn't work, and it's just weird. But I feel like it's just sort of captured some of the imagination and the fun of sort of classic Star Trek with some Next Generation Star Trek, and it just sort of it for some reason I watch it, I can't help but just sort of smile. I love it for some reason, and it got me, it's not well embraced by critics, and but again, I just feel like that they went out and Seth MacFarlane, who I'm not particularly a big fan of, but I feel like he's going out on a limb, he's trying something, he's trying to fill a gap. And I don't know if that show will be around forever, but I certainly am enjoying it while it's on. Probably the podcast that I'm enjoying the most is the NPR's How I Built That. Mm-hmm. Just a great podcast, especially for. I'm just consuming a ton of entrepreneurial podcasts, and so this isn't necessarily for everyone, but How I Built This, the host, his name is Guy Raz. And it's only like a 25-minute podcast, and he just basically interviews different CEOs and different creators, their creative process and their journey of their company, and comes out every Sunday. It's fantastic. So simple, and it's just so inspirational. And if you're on the move, it's a really great podcast to listen to. So definitely would encourage. Anyone who's got any sort of like interest in being an entrepreneur, I think that really is a great one. What else? There is a great YouTube channel called Nerd Writer, and I think the actual author is Nerd Writer, the number 1 or something like that. But if you just look at Nerd Writer, but he basically does these sort of critical and these sort of analytical breakdowns of how things happen in pop culture. And so like something simple as like how to write a great villain, or how to create tension in a story, or the power of color, or something like that. But really phenomenal podcast, YouTube series that really sort of breaks down like why things work in pop culture and why things don't. And so it covers everything from superhero to sci-fi to action adventure and all that sort of. So if you have any sort of interest in pop culture, I definitely think definitely you would love that. And what else? I mean, there's just a ton of. I'm a huge advocate for podcasts, and so there's a show called The Pitch, there's the Growth Show, there's the Spirit of 608 podcast. I just the Girl Boss Radio, Being Boss. I mean, there's just like so many like entrepreneurial podcasts and that I listen to. Podcasts are great because I can keep my hands moving. I can be working on things very physical, and I can listen to and absorb a lot of content at the same time. And
Well, and the funniest thing is that so I had like 8 episodes that I sort of classified as like season 1 of this podcast. So I'd say probably half of the people of that, completely sort of unique to themselves, like, without any prompting, also said How I Built This as one of their like favorite podcasts. So that's like such a pattern of like, if people are listening, because like from that, I also started listening to that podcast. So if like anybody else who's listened to all the episodes has not like it's such a pattern now that people like unbeknownst to anyone else have just been like, yeah, that's like usually like the first one they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this one. I'm just like, of course, because it is really good. Because it even like, I mean,
it's crazy too, because it just started. It's not that old. I mean, it just started early last year, I believe. And, same thing. I was on Facebook and just people started talking about a podcast and just named that right away. And I was like, wow, this thing is really blown up. I think eventually they need to do a How I Built This podcast about the podcast, just
right. Yeah.
I think just how Guy Raz has to interview himself, because what he's been able to do is really striking a chord with a lot of people. And just sort of breaking down how does someone go from idea to reality. So it's great. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, especially like you were saying, for somebody who is actively doing that or wants to do that. But then even then, it's just like, there are just like cool stories about the brands that people love. Like some of the like very venerable brands, but also some of the like successful upstarts that we've seen lately. You'll kind of get their stories from the founders themselves and stuff. So.
But I definitely think that to be as a young entrepreneur and someone who's running a startup, the startup podcasts are crucial. I mean, just listening to people and their pain and their misery and their exhaustion and their desperate tone. It really is it's cathartic, it's encouraging, it's inspirational. And so better than any business school, better than, sure, it's great to have a big pile of money, and sure that it's great to have resources and to have manpower and all that stuff. But to listen to other people in their journey who's a little bit farther ahead than you, go through their creative process and all their woes, really does more to lift your spirits than anything out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's all good stuff. We'll link to all that in the show notes here. But I guess for the sake of time, we'll just kind of wrap up here with the question I'd like to end on. So, some of the stuff that you're consuming currently. So if there's any other kind of bits of content that are coming out in the future, or just stuff that's coming with your businesses, and I'm sure you're looking forward to next year's conventions and everything, but just anything specifically that you're looking forward to in your life with your work, or just kind of any content that you're looking forward to being released soon.
So we are in the design phase of our 2018 collection, and we are close to announcing some new products / some licensed merchandise. And so we're going to announce some new licensed partners that we are obtaining. And so that's going to be pretty exciting. But it's going to birth a whole new line of really innovative new merchandise. I just got out of a design meeting, and I'm really excited about what will be coming out for next year. For we're kind of on the shallow end of ladies wear, and so with that is men and women's ladies merchandise, and so it won't be just for guys, but it'll be guys and girls. So I'm really excited about that, and yeah, I can't believe it because I can't believe it's already 2018, but then we're already planning on San Diego Comic-Con, which is of course July. But between now and then, we've got a bunch of shows that are lined up. I think we're going to do Ace Comic-Con in January, Long Beach Expo in February, WonderCon in March, something in April, I can't remember. But we'll ramp. It'll be a full year of shows, and but really sort of culminating. We have a lot of big stuff planned for San Diego already, and so yeah, it's just like the calendar's already filled up. So that's going to keep us pretty busy. So you definitely check back on our sites and follow us on social media to kind of hear our latest and greatest announcements. And one thing that this doesn't get as much press, but something that I'm very passionate about is in the area of foster care and adoption. Like our company is, and you can see it, you can look on our website and read about our story there, but we're very passionate about supporting the foster care community in Orange County. And we've been supporting it by providing comic books, age appropriate comic books for kids in foster care, as well as some other things too. And so we're looking to continually to ramp that up and to do and engage in more events and more just engage in more ways that we can help the foster care community. And so that's something that I am professionally and personally very excited about is encouraging sort of this next generation of kids who are in high risk situations and helping to encourage and influence and shape them in some way. So yeah, there's that. And new products, new announcements, a year of cons, and then a year of engaging the community. So that's going to be us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just that you've kind of baked that component in here as you're like, getting things started with different businesses and stuff, and just because we, the students that I work with, I was actually in California recently, as of the recording of this episode, for an immersion that we had for our students. So they went to Salesforce, and like they have like a huge like kind of social enterprise component, and it's just one of those things that I think I always appreciate that people kind of always being mindful of that, and the way that they're doing it, they're very involved in it. Sounds like you are as well. Like you can kind of just have a very personal commitment and connection versus just like, oh, we like donate a bunch of money just to whatever, like just like different organizations. Like I choose this particular cause specifically, and we're not just throwing money at it. Like we're really, I think, engaging it in an intentional way, because certainly anybody can donate any money to any organization at any time. And it's cool. Just that idea of like giving comic books to kids to help them because it's still reading, like it helps to build that important skill, but then they can start to maybe build connections and bonds with that and just have a little bit of fun with it and stuff. So it's really
well,
nice.
the biggest thing is that it's many stories within comic books follow around the idea of kids losing their parents. That's a common theme. It's a common trope in the comic book universe is, the idea of a kid being lost and marginalized. And, think of like things like Batman and Superman, Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, Spider-Man. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's all about kids who are orphaned or they're sort of separated from their parents. So comic books are a great way to help kids identify with that and to take their pain and turn it into heroism. So we're looking forward to another year of playing a small part in helping kids heal. And again, more to come, announcements through our website, newsletter, all that good stuff.
Great. Yeah. Well, I know you have to jump off here. I really appreciate your time. Share a lot of good stuff just from your journey, and we'll link to everything that we mentioned in the show notes, as well as Crazy for Comic-Con, your page there, website and social, and here within all that, so everyone can check it out. But just thank you so much for your time, and just have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yep. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast.